Hey folks, my name is Mo Amir and this is VANCOLOUR, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show. It's official, BC's provincial election has begun. Fun fact, the Chief Electoral Officer does not drop the writ, they draw up the writ. And technically it's not the writ, it's writs, plural. 93 in total, one for each electoral district. Anyway, the writs are drawn up, it's go time. And tonight we'll talk about a hot button issue, involuntary care. The former provincial health officer, the one before Dr. Bonnie Henry, Dr. Perry Kendall, will beam in to discuss his concerns. But first, our candidate series where each political party sends any candidate they'd like to talk about any issue they'd like. And the BC NDP are sending their big guns. Here to discuss housing, voted best smile in the BC Legislature, barely beating out Renee Merrifield for that title, BC's housing minister and the twice elected BC NDP MLA for Delta North, going for that three-peat. He is Ravi Kahlon. Ravi, thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. That was quite the introduction. And just for the record, only one person voted.
Who voted?
Me.
Oh, you held this by yourself.
I held it by myself. I don't think anybody else knew there was a contest going on.
Well, hat tip to Renee Merrifield, because I thought she was the favorite to win it, but you won.
She's got a great smile. There's a few of them that got great smiles. Many of them frowning across the way, so I haven't seen all their smiles. So
I can appreciate that. Let's talk about housing. You and the BC NDP are basically saying that John Rustad and the BC Conservatives, if they were to form government, would cancel 300,000 middle-class homes. Now, I looked into the BC housing starts, and it seems like BC only actually builds 45 to 50,000 homes per year. So explain this 300,000 number that you're getting and how John Rustad would cancel all these homes.
Yeah, when we actually brought in the small scale multi-unit and transit-oriented development legislation, we actually went to an independent group of economists and said, what do you think net on top of what we're already building, do you think we can bring online with these changes? And those group of economists came back and said, we think that you can get net 300,000 units above and beyond what provincial government already is building.
Wow.
And so that's pretty significant. And so to hear Rustad say, oh, I'm going to get rid of all of that, when there's no alternative plan, no like, here's how we're going to make it, nothing at all. In fact, also saying getting rid of short-term rental rules, which is already showing that we're starting to get rents under control. A report was just released showing that rents are coming down, and large part because of that. Getting rid of the speculation and vacancy tax. I mean, why would you want to get rid of a tax that taxes people who buy homes and leave them empty? Like, it just makes no sense. 20,000 homes came back to the market because of it.
Yeah.
And so, it does mean that those housing units that could potentially be built are at risk if all of these policies are scrapped.
So this all sounds good in terms of the plans that your government has put forth. But the reality is the BC NDP have been in charge for 7 years. And currently 1 in 3 British Columbians are considering moving out of province, particularly due to the cost of housing. So isn't it reasonable for voters to say, this just isn't working yet. Let's give John Rustad or someone else another try?
Well, I'd say two things. One, rents across British Columbia this year are finally coming down. 6% drop this year. When was the last time you heard in the news that rents were coming down? Honestly, here in Vancouver and British Columbia, it just hasn't been a long time. And so that gives me a glimmer of hope that our policies we've brought in are actually starting to make an impact. Second, we lead the country in housing starts for purpose-built rentals. We're 4 times more than Ontario. And so the policies are working, but it's housing and it takes time. It's not a quick fix that's going to solve the problem. But if your alternative is I'm going to scrap it all and go full, anti-housing, that's not going to address the challenges people are dealing with right now. Like at this point, Rustad has basically said, you know what, I don't believe homeownership is going to be something that people will be able to get in this province. And I just don't agree with it. That's why we brought the plans forward. That's why we're starting to see early days of the results. But I'm under no illusion that there's more work to do.
This week, Mr. Rustad announced the Rustad Rebate, which basically you can deduct whatever you pay in rent or your mortgage from your income tax. It's about a savings of a couple grand per year for British Columbians. That sounds pretty great. I could use $1,700 at the end of the year.
Well, $3.5 billion hole in the budget. And John Rustad's going to make people pay that some way or another. It's coming. Either it's going to be more fees or it's going to be cuts to healthcare. $3.5 billion doesn't just go out of the budget and get replaced. It's got to be replaced with something. And so I know he's going to do it again because he's done it before. This is not like he's new to government. He was in government for a long time. They were there when the healthcare funding was being cut, when women's sexual centers were being cut. And so, I think people are smart enough. I've been knocking on doors. I hear from people. They're like, okay, wait a minute. If you're going to announce something that's $3.5 billion, where's it going to come from? It doesn't just magically happen.
But they say they're going to create efficiencies in the budget. They're going to go through it.
Yeah, I mean,
does that not work?
Please. I mean, listen. That if it were that simple, it would be done a long time ago. The reality is, over 50% of our budget is healthcare. You can't cut $3.5 billion from anything without impacting healthcare. And if you look at their healthcare plan, and I know we're talking housing, but they say they're going to reduce the healthcare spending from 14% of the GDP to 12%. That's $4.5 billion. Like, somebody's got to explain that. Today they announced $3.5 billion cuts. Tomorrow they're saying $4.5 billion from healthcare. So the math doesn't work, and he's going to have to explain that to people because I think people are too smart for that.
Well, we are talking about housing, but you're in campaign mode, so I respect it. Yeah. Did you read my piece in the Tyee regarding vacancy control?
I did.
Did you like it? Did you like it?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting debate, right?
Yeah. And so I just want to bring viewers up to speed here. Basically, your government announced vacancy control for Vancouver's downtown east side. Yeah. What this does is when a tenant moves out, the landlord can't raise the rents to whatever they see as market rents. They still have to keep that same level or raise it to a certain maximum. We don't have that right now in BC. We have rent control that is tied to the tenancy agreement, not the unit. Yeah. You've said that tenancy control protects renters, so why not extend that benefit to all British Columbians?
Well, I'd say two things, Mo. One, the protections we put in for SROs, they do two things. The vacancy control was already there beforehand. Okay. It's not like we just started now. It was there. The courts ruled against it, and we stepped in to say, no, it should continue. Second, we don't want to see more SROs being built. I mean, we honestly don't. We want to move away from SROs. And so it works in that space. We brought a group of experts together, left perspective, right perspective, up and down perspective, all of them to say, give us advice on how we move forward on housing. That body advised us not to go to vacancy control.
That was 6 years ago. Is it still valid, do you think?
I mean, all of the pieces that they recommended were enacting. Okay. And so, it's many times reports come forward and it doesn't really get acted the way probably people want it to be. That housing report, we're actioning every item. The better protection for renters. If a person is using personal use eviction, we made that now for 4 months. We put an additional measure. So we have enacted all those policies. And, I know in order to address the housing crisis, we need more housing. We need more investments in affordable housing directly, but we also need the private sector to be building housing. And if we bring in a measure like that report recommended against that discourages that housing to come, we may be able to do something in the short term, but in the long term, we all will pay for it. And that's what the report recommended to us.
Now, in the BC Legislature, at least the composition of the past BC Legislature, about 20% of MLAs are landlords. Yeah. Do you think that landlord interests are overrepresented in the BC Legislature?
Well, I think it's a good question.
Only 4% renters, by the way, too.
And right? I think it's a good question, but I would kind of reframe it and just say, are people in the legislature voting to protect their own interest, or are they voting to help move the progress for all people across the province? And I think that's the lens that I think should be looked at. For example, when we brought in short-term rental legislation and we said, you know what? These homes should be available for people in our communities. They should be able to rent them, and it shouldn't be just mini hotel operations. Who voted for it? We certainly voted to move in that direction.
I mean, it was your policy, so yeah.
Our policy. No, of course you voted for it. But I mean, but my point is that if you're suggesting that people, because they're landlords, are only doing things in their own interest, that's a position that is contrary to that position. We are supporting of rents only going up at CPI. John Rustad actually said that he was going to lift it. And today he said, I'm not going to lift it right away. I'm going to do it eventually, but I'm not going to do it right away. But, the idea that you're just going to say to people, you can just raise rents anytime you want is a scary proposition, especially for people who are struggling to get by day to day.
Ravi, we are running out of time, but I really do appreciate chatting with you. We covered a lot of ground here. Best of luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm taking the mug home.
Oh, please do. Folks, running for re-election for the BC NDP in Delta North, two-time Canadian Summer Olympian. That is true, by the way, 2000 and 2008 in field hockey. He is Ravi Kahlon. Now, after some business, should the province be imposing mental health and addictions treatment onto some British Columbians without their consent? We'll talk about involuntary care up next.